I do have a nice digital version to show you, but before I do, I want to explain what that is. The 200 plus hours is a rough, extremely rough estimation of how long I believe it took me, because I started that drawing a few years ago. I dedicated it to my nephew, who was born in 2021, and to commemorate that, I wanted to create something for him that he could like grow up with and appreciate as he grows older. So I had this idea for the longest time, not even just for him, but like for myself. I really wanted to see if I could just a single piece of paper, like really huge, filled with doodles, structures, cities, characters, made up or from animation, film, pop culture, everything and anything really. And I started it a few years ago. It was pretty slow. Then I wasn't in possession of it for like quite a while, so I didn't get to work on it. And only these past few months, I've been working on it like every day for at least a few hours. So even if I was like for sure working like 4 or 5 hours a day for the past month, that's already like around 150 hours. And then I definitely worked more than that, so that's like definitely 200 plus hours. I did expand a little on the idea by adding this root system, because I felt like it would have been just a little bare, like I wanted to have a silhouette of something. So I think roots symbolize growth, and that's like the essence of the drawing. But yeah, I want to pull up the digital version which I made, which was a feature film project of its own. So since it is so huge and so detailed, it isn't enough to just take a wide scope photo, like one single photo. Even if I tried to do like 50 megapixels, my phone can do 50 megapixels, and not even that was enough to capture like the whole thing in one go with all the details. So I had to eventually take multiple little photos of the canvas and stitched them all up manually. I did get it scanned, actually. Just to demonstrate, I'm gonna show you this little portion here. It's this little piece of paper, like torn, and it has some writing on it. This is Lithuanian writing, so it doesn't matter, but it's intelligible. It's supposed to be intelligible. In this photo, it's not really that much, but essentially, I paid like £50 to get a scan done, but this is what I got. It's just such a blur. The amount of work that went into every little cross hatch line, I want it to be visible, you know? Look at this Totoro, for example. You can see every little line I did for the shading. I used the cross-hatching technique for basically all of it. And in here, it just looks like a rough pencil sort of shadow. So yeah, it was really important for me to show all the details as much as possible. So yeah, what I really wanted to do was just make a nice digital version, make this video to show people what I worked on, what I'm proud of. You know, because we artists are just depraved of people's eyes and attention. So you can check the description below. I'll add an ArtStation link where I have this work posted, but I'm not gonna spend the whole of this video just talking about this one artwork, because I was more so inspired to do a whole portfolio showcase, actually. So that's what this is. This is just as an introduction for the latest piece I finished, asking you to go and have a look. But if you're interested, for the rest of the video, I'm going to be showing you some 3D artwork, digital artwork. So if you follow the link to my ArtStation below, you should end up on this site. A little background about me is that I studied video game digital art in 2020 here in the UK. Since 2020 was COVID times, it was really tough because I didn't get to make connections. And in an industry like the video game industry, it is important to have connections. It is not just important to have a really nice portfolio, which I believe I do have, you know, but it's important to know people from the inside. And we just didn't have any visitors coming to the university and talking and seeing our projects and what we're working on. And yeah, I just didn't end up having a placement, having a job in that industry, which is unfortunate. But life goes on and I'm moving on to other things. But I just do want to show you in this video, you know, stuff that I've been working on so that it exists out there and it inspires someone. And I hope you don't get discouraged if you're like, well, here's this guy who's like trying and he didn't get anything, so why should I try? It's because I'm stupid and lazy, because I focus on stuff which isn't in my best interest. So right now I'm gonna start at the bottom where I have some illustrations here. Then I'm gonna move up, and there's this project here, which is actually a final major project I did for university, and I will discuss it in another video, I believe, because I really want to talk about it thoroughly, and this video would just be way too long if I included that. The first illustration I don't feel that much about. It's like a photo bashed image. It symbolizes the creative process for me. The digital process especially, yeah, of course, sort of feeling intertwined with technology, fighting it, almost like in the brawl, in the battle. Yeah, so that's something I describe in the description here. This is another illustration. It is of a mythical entity. It is a grass snake, which in Lithuanian folklore is seen as a very holy creature. So if you're unfamiliar with photo bashing, what I mean by that is just like I take photos from the internet, you know, whatever. I took a snake head and then I kind of applied it to how I need it to look, and then I painted a third eye on here, you know. So you just manipulate photos to make a whole illustration. People are afraid to kind of just like take stuff and you know, you just make it your own. It really helps with the process, and it is very motivating to like craft an illustration in this way, because it doesn't take you forever, and it really doesn't need to take you forever. Like if you just have a vision, just get it done. Like just don't use AI. Just take photos, glue them together, whatever you need to do to create an illustration. Do not use artificial intelligence. That is a sad thing in today's world. This is another illustration, an eerie scene reminiscent of a nostalgic place. So I used quite a few techniques here. So I did some 3D modeling in Maya to block out the scene. Then I of course took photos of things around the house to paste into the drawing. Then I painted over everything digitally to kind of to make it into one cohesive piece. And what you see in here is me sitting in the kitchen, kind of looking into the corridor, like what's going on there. Maybe I heard something, or I just feel spooked. And over here through the creak of the door we see what seems to be another me, but kind of ghoulish. And there's also the element of this reflection here with the mask mirroring onto the mirror, the broken mirror, like maybe bad luck or something. So this drawing is kind of like in two pieces, like it's a reflection. Moving on, we have another mythical entity which is called a Žebrinis, and this entity is said that if you disrespect like boundaries, like actual territorial boundaries, I believe, it like kind of hunts you down and flames you for it, literally flames you. This is my rendition of it. It's not described to be like this exactly, you know, but it does have the flame in its rib cage. But the shoulder blades like acting as wings is my own imagery. And he's coming down this like decrepit staircase, looking at these two children. So this is actually like a little sister and a brother. They've passed, it's like their souls, but the brother's soul is moving on and the sister is kind of, you know, there for him but unsure what to do. So there's elements in this drawing that were inspired by this book I'm writing, a novel, but you know, I won't say much about it because it's gonna take me years to actually get it done. Here I've got a little animation to show you the process. So I took literally just an image of this corridor. I threw in this skeleton model, which I used a mobile app to model, pose the skeleton, took a screenshot, added some other little bits, and then I just started changing the hues and painting over stuff and blocking in color, lightings, color, just making it all look cohesive as if I didn't bash it together from multiple things, you know. Moving on, we've got a little illustration set. Pilot is a fictional character in Poor Sleepyhead lore, which is more relevant to my Instagram account, where I have videos of that like world building stuff. But these illustrations were inspired by like PS2 ad campaigns for like this made up game. I really like this one, like me trapped in a PS2, but it's a PSH, Poor Sleepyhead. So being a video game digital artist, or wanting to be, I was like, I gotta do some like character concept sketches, right? Because I basically mainly did environment art stuff, so I was inspired again by Baltic mythology, Lithuanian mythology. By the way, Lithuania is like a country in Europe. It's by the Baltic Sea, the Baltic states, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, that's all you need to know. These are called Akmen, which are rock men. They aren't based in any pre-existing folk tales. I actually first had the idea of this guy with a rock head. He has this, what I refer to as a sigil in this drawing, but these are more so just like folk ornaments, which represent feelings or animals, ideas, whatever it is. So those usually appear on traditional clothing and architecture. This other one is floating. It's got a cloth draped over it, which almost looks like a European lace, like Eastern European lace, you know, the grannies over the TV. Yeah. This other one's got a clay body with that sort of ornamenture. The face has like this piece of paper in front of it, which is a very direct inspiration from Spirited Away. This is a very animalistic, almost monkey-like entity. This guy is like a smaller version of the first one, hanging sigils on strings. So all of these in some way try to implement those geometric shapes. Like this one, in its body, it has these like curves and turns which mimic, you know, the crossing. He's got a little imitation of a mouth, a smile. This one's just fully made out of wood. This one's got an acorn head with like a beam inside of it, a brightness coming out. This one's really abstract. It's just like a clay, very much like mathematical entity. I'm really pleased how these turned out. Like, it was fun drawing them. I just stuck to one brush size and I just sketched like I'm using a pencil. Moving on from those, I'm now gonna show you more like stuff that I did in university. First thing I can show you here is a group project. Me and 4 other artists, 2 programmers and a designer, worked on a little game project. So we had to make a playable alpha of a 2.5D platformer, and this is how it turned out. It's a little video. You know, looks alright. I mean, considering how much time we had, maybe a few months, or a couple months really, just a couple. This is just like an alpha build, but it was really fun. Then at the end here's this like boss, this toad, which I animated. These are like some concepts I did, testing out like different seasons, environments. This is like a forest area. I think the vibes are really nice in these pictures, but they are obviously very different from what the game ended up being. Did some UI element testing. A lot of these are pretty goofy, but some of them look cool, I guess. Like, I kind of like these ones here. Then I did the title screen concept. This is kind of what I wanted it to look like. I don't know why they chose this font, because it's hard to read, and also the buttons, these leaves aren't supposed to be here, like whatever. So I did help do some concepts for the character. We did end up using just my course mate's design, because she is also very good at animating the little character. This was the first version, which looked very spiky and angular, but that didn't fit with my other course mate's style, because she drew the other 2 bosses, which are a wasp and a bird. They didn't show up in the game though, so I kind of made it more similar to her style, like rounded, though I think it ended up looking a bit more friendly than it should. These are the animations I worked on. So the walking cycle, just breathing. These are the separate keyframes. Yeah, walking. I like the walking animation. I think I'm most proud of that one. Jumping is pretty good as well, like with the effect. The attack, the rolling tongue is fun. Taking damage, that could be better. And then onward, I did just some 3D modeling as well, but the assets aren't that complicated, so I just kind of want to skim over this. You know, I did some texture work and stuff. But moving on, I've got a bit of a downer. It is an unfinished project, an abandoned one. It was for Grads in Games, which is like a contest for game artists. So I chose to do like a dreamscape, and my concept was to have a ship which was called the Reverie, which analyzes the dreamscape, and it synthesizes objects from those dreams and then stores them in this huge library. So this is like the first concept I did. Before that, I did have some concept sketches here. I actually do like this first one, which is like very organic. And the reason why it ended up being abandoned was because the scope was way too large. Okay, so just to briefly interrupt, as I was looking for a process document to show you, I found a version of the project which I tried to salvage. So after I submitted the project, I wanted to come back and kind of refine some details, maybe get rid of some of the busy elements, though I did add some like other busy elements like this robotic arm, holographic display, some more thingamabobs. It would be really cool to finish it really, but I just simply don't have the time to get into this anymore, though it is still cool to just see it like this at least. But here's the process document itself, where I describe the concept a little more. Here are actually some of the proper names for the things. So the printer is actually called L.O.V.E, the liquid oxygen vibrational emitter. The stem is the ship, the arch is the portal type thing, and yeah, I just made up some stuff here, some ideas. I was searching, mood boarding. Interestingly enough, I did use some AI as well to search for ideas, which, you know, I adamantly am against at this point, but back then it was still in its kind of infancy, and, you know, it wasn't that shameful to look into these things, but I wouldn't be doing this now really, though at the time, just for some inspiration, it was cool. So this was like a really rough block out, which I based my concept art on. Here's the conversation pits I was intending to add, the dreamscape itself, which had these almost like crop circle type figures on the ground, this floating lion head, you know, something abstract. And then in the engine, it all ended up looking just so bad. The lighting and everything is just really garish, the colors just don't mash, and yeah, the scope of it was too large. I ended up rushing it and it just doesn't look cohesive at all, but you live and you learn. To make up for the lost time that I ended up researching for that contest, I actually used that concept sort of to make this character, so that he is supposedly like the person who would be the pilot of the Reverie, and he is called a visionary. It's a very eccentric looking person. They've got a prosthetic leg, really interesting clothing. He's got this like balaclava sort of helmet thing, got some eyeliner, some sleek graphic liner. He's got this really cool jewelry, which was directly inspired by this man on Instagram, Lithuanian as well. This is the process. Finding ideas. I did some concepts of him at first. I actually like this third one. If I was doing this now, I think I would have picked the third one. Then some more variations, and then Zendaya is an inspiration as well. And I did photo bash his face from like multiple random old men. Here's the guy I was talking about. We also had to do like a vehicle concept, so this is just like some drawings. So you can see this is very well inspired by that contest concept I did. Could have done a better job at the texturing of the face. High poly model, and then making the low topology. If this doesn't mean a lot to you, then, you know, I don't have to talk about it. But, you know, these are the textures I did and all that. And then I did end up doing some animation, rigging, skinning, dusting off, holding something. Like, he looks kind of goofy, but it's cool to see him move, to make a character and see him move. So that's fun. Moving on, this is a throne from Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland. This was basically the first like high poly model we did in the university. Our job was to make a high definition model and then turn it into a low definition, but with all the details of the high poly one. So essentially what that means is, you know, looking at this throne, you can see that it looks like there's a lot of details here, but they aren't actually physically there because this rim is flat, and this texture and shader is kind of mimicking as if it's actually there and reacting to the light. Those aren't there, it's just an illusion. So that is a technique used in video games, like basically everywhere. So yeah, this is just like the steps I took to make it. And then that asset was actually used in our group project where we had to recreate the throne room from Alice in Wonderland. So this was another group project. We were 5 artists working on this, so we have the central main shot, which includes some of the stuff I made, which is the staircase, the throne, the curtains, and also the monkeys in the back. You can't really see them that well, but so this is the shot from the movie, what it looked like. And I think it turned out really good. Like, I'm really proud of what we did. Then this is some of the work I did. So texture work, these are the models I worked on. And I actually want to show you the video that we had to submit to kind of show off what we did. So I had to set up the camera and the lighting and the engine, just kind of showing the stuff my course mates made, you know, the stained glass, the flooring, the pillars, the ceiling. And I really like the shot where it kind of comes up and is very grandiose. Here's one of the monkeys. The monkey. Now this here is a little thing called photogrammetry. So essentially you go take multiple pictures of an object from multiple angles, like you go around a little from the top, a little from the bottom, and you'll look like a freak doing it. You can actually see there was a person like sitting there while I was doing this. You know, you just gotta trust the process. Essentially, you take those photos, drop them into the software called Reality Capture. It makes it all into a very high detailed 3D model. But to use it in video games, I cannot just use that high poly model. I have to use another software to make it low poly. As you can see, this higher one, which I just took from the program, has like 100,000 points. And after making it low poly, it has only 7,000 points, which is still like a lot. That's still considered pretty high fidelity for a bench asset in a video game, but I wanted to preserve the kind of wooden carving texture of it all. So I redid the texture a little bit, and this is what it ended up looking as. I repeated that process for a lot of the other stuff. This sort of stone with a hole in it, ended up doing that as well. An apple, full apple, an eaten apple, and I ended up using these assets, all of these, in my final major project, which turned out really awesome. So this stump, these trunks, very beautiful, just in the park nearby me. And moving on, these are what I did after university. I modeled my Switch. It was good to have something that I own physically that I can like turn around, look at. All the little buttons and mechanisms. Even the game cartridge, I based it on the pilot illustration here. It's even got this backing here with the kind of scratch marks of putting it in and out. This hinge in the back also like opens up, and I did end up animating it. So I did a little animation here, showing off the topology. Here's the game cartridge kind of coming out of the screen. I did some compositing, of course, for this video. The controllers. Just some nice little animation as well, showing, you know, my skills. If anyone cares, apparently they don't. This one is a recreation of my desk. It took me a while to do because I was essentially recreating little trinkets and things. So I tried to model everything I had and texture, just to recreate my workspace, which is kind of meta, because I'm sitting at this desk right now, this same desk, with these headphones and this microphone and this same mouse. Didn't amount to anything, just, you know, ended up being some practice. And you know, the way I'm kind of talking about it right now is like, kind of like, yeah, I did it, I did that, whatever, model, texture. But it is a lot of work that goes into it, and I sent so many applications to game studios that were like, some even just like bare bones, like the stupidest studios. Like I was sending it everywhere. I wasn't just sending it to big studios like AAA. I was sending it to the smallest things, and nobody came back to me. I had one interview one time, but it didn't go beyond the first call. And it was so demotivating because that studio that called me was actually the studio my course mentor worked at. So I was like, wow, here's this company where my literal teacher used to work at, who's calling me for an interview for a position that I applied to. And I told them that, I'm like, actually, your studio's director, who used to be your director in the past, is now my teacher. And I thought they were going to look at my profile, the fact that the teacher, blah, blah, blah. And it didn't amount to anything. They still didn't want me. And it wasn't even like a difficult or like full experience position. Like it was just an entry level, I thought. I was like, if I can't get into that, like I thought that I had such a good shot, and I just kind of gave up on video game art. And now with the rise of AI, as I mentioned, the scary big AI monster, I am just really hesitant to like spend any more time on applying for digital art positions. That is a market that at the moment there are so many layoffs, like record high layoffs, and it is kind of oversaturated in some sense. So last year I actually ended up making a switch to tattoo artistry, which is of course a very traditional art form, something that AI cannot replace, at least at this moment. Oh my god. And the last thing I want to show you are just some tattoo flashes I've done. Most of those I actually just drew right here on paper with pencil and ink, and a lot of these are intertwined with a little bit of lore, as I mentioned, poor sleepyhead lore. But that's just for anyone who cares. I will actually end up making a video explaining that stuff. People have always known, like, I draw, and they always tell you, like, oh, it would be so cool if you were a tattoo artist. And you're like, yeah. And, you know, I was always kind of hesitant to become one, because I thought I'm kind of introverted. Like, I don't know if I'm fit to work with people. Like, maybe I'm just too nervous or whatever. But that was kind of more of a belief that other people pushed onto me. And I never was actually opposed to the idea of working with people. So I actually recently paid for a tattoo course, which only ended up being like a little more than a month it took me to finish, but it was exactly all the expertise I needed to get. Like, I got to model 2 girls, like these 2 models. I did 4 tattoos. They came out really well. I got certified, and I'll be looking to get a studio placement next year. And really, at the end of the day, it's kind of the exact thing I wanted to do in the first place, I think. Just make art, make my little drawings, because, you know, to be a game artist these days, I think you have to be more of a technical artist, because it's moving more away from that sort of just like making assets, which is kind of most of what I was doing, just making assets, and more about the technical aspect of it, like the visual effects and actually working with programming and all those sorts of tools, which kind of intimidate me and I was hesitant to work with. So yeah, that was really just like a portfolio showcase for today. I will make a video showcasing this final major project. I guess I'll just give a little bit of a teaser. That's it. But I hope you did enjoy and you stuck through a little bit of this video. I know it's kind of tedious to just like kind of look at stuff and hear me rambling about it, yapping about it. I did kind of try to keep it short though, like I could have gone like so into every little thing. Thank you for watching, thank you for your attention. Even if I look at the video statistics and it's gonna be 5 minutes of watch time with 20 views, I'm gonna still be excited. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. You know, like looking at a video like, okay, like 30 people watched my video. What's the watch time? 8 minutes? When it's a 20-minute video? Y'all can't even watch a minute of this. Attention spans are dwindling. People can't appreciate art. What the fuck is happening? And goodbye. I'm actually have to go pack my luggage for my flight tomorrow. I'm going home where I'm gonna finally gift this piece. I mean, my 3-year-old nephew probably isn't gonna care, but check out the link, ArtStation. Give it a like, give it a comment. Tell me what you think. Goodbye. See you.